Here's the update for the rat bow. Here's the stabilizers we built in the last video. I went ahead and wrapped them and painted them like I mentioned I would probably do. That's just black lacrosse tape, little black spray paint, and some hammered copper spray paint. I'm thinking that the theme of the entire bow is going to be this industrial copper and black look, maybe a little silver of some kind. I'm not sure yet. Obviously, we got plenty of room to play with it and adjust it as we want, because none of this is, a super big deal to change. It's obviously not looking professional. It's meant to look rough, and you can see that there. I like that look. We'll see. Here's the short bar, same way. Got the copper tips, black on the logo there, wrapped, copper on the attachments. I'm going to go ahead and strip this bow because I needed to replace the strings. I've got a broken strand, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money on this bow, but you've got to have a decent set of strings. So I went ahead and ordered them. They just came in yesterday. So I'm going to start tearing this bow down because I'm going to paint the limbs, riser. I'm going to take the accessories off and work on them. Before I get to that, I do want to shout out Threads. I emailed them last week, told them, this was a 2016 Hoyt Nitrum. I gave them the specs, which you can see here. And they emailed me back within an hour asking for my knock size because they wanted to get the serving size correct. So her name is Margie, the one that emailed me, and I emailed her back, told her the knocks I would be shooting. Within 15-20 minutes, she emailed me again, and she said, okay, it's $118. Here's our PayPal address. We'll ship them tomorrow. So shout out to these guys. Again, custom strings, bronze, metallic, and black. They showed up in 3 days. Fully built custom strings. I've used them several times. They don't stretch. They're good strings. A lot of companies make good strings, but I don't know anybody with that kind of customer service. So thank you guys. I hope to run into you sometime. I want to shake your hand in person. Awesome. So while I've got this thing tore down, I'm going to go ahead and work on these accessories. I'm thinking I'm going to build like scope shades for this sight. I shoot pins, and the problem with that is with this open fiber optic, if in direct sunlight, they're so bright you can't see your target. And in the dark, you can't see your pins. So you want to control your own light. And a lot of target shooters use, high-end $100 to $200 sight lights, which are LED rechargeable. They run their own fiber optic to their pins. They're pretty nice. But that's not the point of this deal. We're going to try to do it on our own. So you can see in the back of the sight, the fiber optics run here. I have a sight light that'll plug in and operate, but I need to control the shade here so that all of the light going to this sight is what I choose it to be. So I'm going to have to black out this tubing that runs down the fiber optic because I don't want it gaining ambient light. And then it'd be boring to just run a normal sight light. So I've got this, which I ordered off of Amazon. It's 3 foot of 0.16 inch fiber optic. And it is the proper diameter to fit into the back of the sight. I'll plug it in there, wrap it on the riser somewhere, get a light system of some sort. Should cost me $10-15. And, with this all blacked out and my light, I can control exactly how bright my pins are in every situation. I'm going to figure out something with this rest. I'm still not sure. Really, there's no reason to change this cage other than aesthetics. And I kind of want it to fit the build of the bow. So I don't know if I'm going to remove it entirely and build my own, or if I'm just going to accent it with some things to make it a little grungier. This, I mentioned in the previous video, looks too nice for my stabilizers, because you can see here. Hold on. Here's my back bar. You got this nice grungy black bronze going into a clean shiny stainless and black attachment. I'm gonna have to get that to match this. The whole bow's gonna be a whole lot different. A lot of folks are nervous about working on the bow, but you get a press, take them apart. They're fairly simple. I recommend learning how to work on your own. Little Google search, little YouTube. It's not hard, and there's a lot you can do to make your bow shoot better with a little bit of research. And again, it's not as scary as you might think. Don't lose your spacer there. Set that right here so I don't lose that. Boom. There's your yoke. Okay, strings and cables are totally off the bow. Now, this is something you gotta be careful with. I'll show you guys here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. But I'm gonna let the pressure out of these limbs. And as those straighten out, you should have a brace here to keep, because this bow might want to shoot out of this press. As you loosen it out, the limbs straighten up, all the force is pushing down, and it can shoot your bow out. So just be careful, put a little pressure on your riser, let it out. These limbs are going to go fully straight, which will look very unique. Rarely do you see a straight limb on a compound, but again, it's not as scary as you might think. How compressed these limbs are at all times. This is a 30-inch bow, and for me to pull it out of the press with no string on it, I had to go to 36.5 inches. So there's your limbs. They are straight. You just never expect that because they maintain pressure all the time. That's a impressive engineering to to have a bow that's just meant to maintain that stress at all times. So your cams, you can check your bearings at this point. They should spin freely without hanging up at all. They do that. Matter of fact, there is a little bit of noise in that bearing. Not enough to worry me to replace it. It's a slight rattle. Hoyt has sealed bearings, and the grease in them does dry out, and you'll hear a little rattle in them from time to time. I might pull them apart and see if I can get some grease in there, but I'm not going to replace them. So there we go. String and cable's gone. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble the rest of the bow now, and it's going to just be chunks and pieces. Okay. So there's your limb pockets. There's that bushing that runs all the way through the riser into the other side of the limb pocket. Here's the spacer for that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this bushing out. And what I want to do, I want that bushing and spacer along with that limb bolt. And I want to place those together because I want to make sure this goes on the top limb. So I'm going to set everything back here. I'll show you in a minute my loose organization to make sure parts go where they need to go. All right, in this piece here, you usually see that in your riser. All that is basically the nut for your limb bolt. They don't want to run a limb bolt into an aluminum riser, of course, so you get this steel insert, and that's what your limb bolt threads into. That pops out. I'm going to set that over there as well. I'm going to pull these cams out, or this cam out, and all that is a little C-clip. Pull that axle. Catch my spacers here. So you just put them back in the order they were, which was my black washer, my black spacer, then my cam, then my white spacer, and then my other C-clip. Go ahead and clip that all together. Now your axle's in order and your cam is separate. Here's those bearings. You can press those out. I'm going to leave them in. I'm going to paint these cams, but I'm just going to tape those bearings, and I'm going to tape this run. I don't want any paint buildup where my strings or cables run. These probably aren't getting saturated in paint, but if you wanted to go further apart, you would press these bearings out. You could take your string stop out. I'm going to leave that together. Here's my bottom cam. Okay, my limbs. All right, so now to get my limbs out, fully out of the pocket, they're kind of being pinched into place right now by my silencer. I loosen that just slightly, takes the pressure off of my limbs, and my limbs will slide right out. Okay, so I'm gonna leave all this together just for the sake of organization, but when I go to paint it, I'll pull these limbs out and paint them one piece at a time. So that's all it is, guys. If you ever need to replace a limb, it's not that big a deal to tear a bow down. You know, just make sure you keep all your parts organized. Again, keep your spacers and your bushings aligned. Keep your axle spacers aligned. And some guys, when they're tuning a bow, will shim these spacers anyway, but we'll deal with that when we put it back together and tune it. Should be in order just the way we had it, but those can always be moved around and shimmed to make your bow shoot as straight as possible. All right, so she's fully taken apart. You can see the limbs, cams, axles, riser, everything is a separate piece right now, and that's just going to make it easier to paint in the configuration I want. I really considered just painting this thing put together, but when I was going to replace the strings and cables and take all the weight out of the limbs anyway, I just figured why not. All right, back in the shop. Rat bow is now in a lot of pieces. That's because it's going to get painted. Not necessarily right away. Got a few other things to work on. This back bar needs a little more weight here, and funny enough, I had scotch taped these Allen wrenches onto it, and that felt just right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to weigh these 2340, 2,340 grains. I'm going to go get a piece of ladder stand, which I use for the collars, and I'm going to get a piece that weighs close to that. If it doesn't, I don't want it super long. If it isn't anywhere close in a shorter section, then I'm going to weld some bolt heads onto it, put it on here as my extra weight. So I'm going to go grab some of that. Oh yeah, it's snowing, by the way. Okay, we're looking for 2337. I know this is not that. Let's see how close we are. I don't know if you can read that, but it says 766. So I need 1,500 more, right? Sure. All right, so that comes up to about 2,200 grains, which is going to be about 100 grains lighter than what I had, but you know, it doesn't got to be perfect. That's close enough for me, and that'll give me all four sides of this. So let's just start tacking things on there. First, I'm gonna have to clean some of this powder coat off. Perfect. All right, so a little ladder stand, a few random nuts laying around, and I'm hoping to be 2337 is the Allen wrenches. 2224. Perfect. So now all I gotta do just got to paint it up, glue it on there. She's set. It's going to look good. And by good, I mean not good, but it'll be cool. All right. We'll let that dry off for a minute or two. We're going to move on to our next deal, which would be my sight. I would like to build a scope shade here. I'm also going to get rid of these. I think that's probably 2-inch. See if I can find something to make a little scope shade out of that. And then again, I'm going to build a sight light and control that light. I would prefer to use something thin-walled like this. This is drain pipe. This is not the right diameter. It's going to be too narrow. Because again, weight is a concern when you're talking archery. I've got the weight where I want it on the bow, so I'm trying not to add much. Hold on. All right. I don't even know what this is for. See, there's a reason you keep this stuff. It's important. Sometimes you find a use. Why would I duct tape PVC together? I'm not really sure. Okay. perfect. I'm not going to add any to the inside because I don't want to hide my orange ring there or my level. But I'm going to add just a little to the outside here. Not much, no, just I'm going to cut this down. Probably just an inch or two. And close this vent with something. And then I've got a lot of my light control started already. Perfectly straight. Take a knife, cut this up. Just need to find a way to glue that in there. I'm thinking 2-part epoxy ought to do me. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I need to close this vent. Duct tape? Maybe. Oh yeah, it's all about the precision. All right, so now that vent is closed, I'm gonna go ahead and glue this in. And now we have good and controllable light, which I'm gonna run with this fiber optic, which is gonna plug into the back of this sight, run up onto the riser somewhere and into a light source. Beautiful. All right. Way too much. This cage, I don't like it. Something about it I don't like. Much better. A little less blocky. Totally new NAP Apache now. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, more better. Go ahead and paint that since it's apart. All right, guys, well, I'm gonna have to pause for this evening. Got some things painted here. I'm gonna put some paint on that site, let it dry overnight. Tomorrow I'll come out here, put it together. We'll see how it turned out. And, you know, from there, we're getting pretty close to putting this thing back together. All right, the accessories are done. Here's our chop drop away. Just painted up to match the look we're going for. Of course, the stabilizers you've seen. Got the quick detach matching a little better now at this point. Of course, our weights are mounted. Our sight with our homemade scope shade is done. And some of our little accents we built out of license plate. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. Next video, I'm going to paint this thing, put it back together, put our accessories on, new strings and cables, finish our sight light, and the build should be complete in that video. We'll continue from there with tuning, shooting, and seeing how it actually operates. But that's it for this one, guys. Thanks so much. Hope you're enjoying the project. It's fun for me. Thought it'd be fun to share, so I'm glad you're sticking along.